Welcome to Tuesday Motivation and Conversation. I'm a little impractical tonight. I didn't want to move out of my spot. I was comfortable. So, hey, I decided I was going to just hang right here. I hope you've had an amazing day. I hope your week's been good so far. Um, there's a lot going on. And one of the things I think is so important is that we be self aware as much as possible of ourselves. And so I've been on this little personal journey of my own. And it's causing me to be a little bit more self-aware. And so, of course, you know that self-awareness is number two in the self-work framework that we've been talking about and discussing. So I definitely want to get into that tonight and, you know, gain clarity in that area. And that's important for impacting our personal well-being and our effectiveness and our overall life satisfaction. And that's gaining clarity. And so, one of those aspects of that is to make sure that we have this self awareness. We've been in this series of self work framework, and yes, I'm a little bit early tonight. So, uh, but I wanted to go ahead and as I'm ending my day and not delay tonight. So, that's why I'm on a little bit early tonight. But I want to get into the self awareness framework. And so, as always, I kind of just review. The things that we've been talking about in this self work framework. And then I want to press on to the next piece. And of course, self reflection will always be a part as we go through it because that is at the top. That's the covering of the framework. So the self work framework is self reflection, self awareness, self knowledge, self direction, and self leadership. And so tonight we're going to start to talk about self awareness. And this is so important because we have, and as always, I'm pulling up my notes, but we have an opportunity for self awareness to make sure that we are learning more about who we are, what it is that we desire, especially in this season. You got to be self aware and you've got to utilize the opportunities that have been afforded to you as an individual and be conscious of that. And so that's what's so important is making sure that you are conscious of your own knowledge or and so I'm going to give you this working definition for that I'm utilizing for self-awareness. And we'll use this as our starting point for tonight. And we'll move. I want to just really kind of dissect this, and then we'll go deeper next week as we continue on. Self awareness is conscious knowledge of one's own character, feelings, motives, and desires. Let me just say that again. Self awareness is conscious knowledge of one's own character, who you are, your feelings, your motives, why you do what you do, your feelings, your emotions, and your desires. It involves being able to recognize and understand one's thoughts, emotions, behaviors, as well as how they align with your values and your goals. I know that's a lot. That's a mouthful, but it's important that we are self aware. Self awareness also includes an understanding of how one's actions affects others and the environment. Because if you're not self aware, you can impact an environment that you're in negatively, and you can also impact positively. But being self aware is important because every environment is different, every room is different, every person is different. And so it doesn't matter what other people are doing, but it's important and it matters how you adapt to environments. So you have to be self aware in order to do that and do that effectively and intelligently. Self awareness is a key component of emotional intelligence, and it is important for personal growth, effective communication, not just communication, but effective communication. Because sometimes we can be we can be in a conversation or communicating with someone, and there is tension, toxicity, so forth and so on that may have nothing to do with you. You have to be self aware that that is something happening with the other person and not you, and not act upon it. So that's just a little example. And developing empathy. So that's important. You have to be able to put yourself in someone else's shoes. So that's the working definition, self-awareness. So as we have talked about self-reflection is the first element of the self-work framework. And self-reflection is so important because it takes the self-reflection to help us to be self-aware. Self-awareness is heightened once we've done self-reflection. And so I'll use myself as an example. I'm on this little journey with my health, and I'm trying to be even better at being cognizant of my diet at this season of life. There are some shifts and changes that I have to continue to be cognizant of. And so, as I have started this journey, the conversations that I've had with my coach has made me become more self-aware of some things. And one of the things is really being mindful of the time when I'm eating, and the times that I should be eating versus when I'm not, and the time that I allow in between meals. Um, and so this is just an example, but it's something that's important for me, and it's important for me to get on track and stay on track. And so while I schedule everything else, do you know one of the things that I do not schedule, and that is when I eat, when I do my meals. And so as a result of that, I could, have my coffee, which is my main thing. I'm gonna get my coffee. If I don't have nothing else, I'm gonna have my coffee. But when I have breakfast, so one of the things is being mindful of having breakfast. I can do coffee and I'm good. I don't have to have a morsel, nothing else. But it's important for my body that I have breakfast on some level with protein, fruit, something, and so I'm being more cognizant of that. And in addition to that, putting pen to paper on it and journaling. But the other thing I've discovered is that once I've done that, because that gets me going, that starts my day, and it puts me into the work mode. Well, I can work and get on a trajectory of meeting after meeting after meeting, and I look up and it's 2 or 3 o'clock and I've not had lunch. So then we borderline dinner time, for folks that eat early, 5 o'clock, they get ready for dinner. I ain't really had a good lunch yet. So it's helping me. This journey of being mindful, writing things down, is making me be aware of the fact that I'm not eating timely, right? So that can also have a factor in some of the issues that I'm noticing with my body and with eating and things of that nature. So it's important that we are self-aware. And so that's paying attention to our thoughts, paying attention to our body, paying attention to our feelings, paying attention to our desires, our behaviors. Be aware of you and what you do and what you don't do and what you need to do and what you don't need to do. So this is just kicking us off. And so the self-reflection was the first part of starting the journey. This is where I was getting to. So it's important that we got to have self-reflection, because I have to go back and I had to think about what I'm doing versus what I'm not doing, and then take that into account in order to be able to set up a plan of action for what I need to do. Because if I don't do that, there's no starting point. So it's important that there's a starting point, and the starting point is a self-reflection. So that helps to get us to this place of self-awareness, and it starts us on a trajectory. Now, I already know I'm not going to get through all of this, but I do want to start with this one piece just as an intro for tonight, and then I'm going to be done, and I'm gonna come back, and we're going to keep plowing through. So number one, there are 3 areas that I'm going to work through based on the definition that I just shared. Self-awareness is a conscious knowledge of one's own character, feelings, motives, and desires. It involves being able to recognize and understand one's thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, okay, as well as how to align with one's values and goals. Self-awareness also includes an understanding of how one's actions affect others and the environment. It's a key component of emotional intelligence and is important for personal growth, effective communication, and developing empathy. Okay. So from that, these are the areas we're gonna talk about over the next few weeks. Number one, knowledge of one's character, feelings, motives, and desires. We're gonna start on that tonight. Number two, recognition and understanding of one's thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Recognition and understanding. Sometimes we don't even recognize, right, that there's a thought about something, and we definitely don't understand the emotions. And the behaviors is something totally different because depending on the day, the week, the hour, those thoughts and emotions can collide and how they align with one's values and goals. And a lot of times we're operating in our emotions and our thoughts and our behaviors, and none of it aligns with any of our goals or our values. Sometimes it does, oftentimes it does not. So it's important for us to be self-aware so that when we are interacting, there are things we can say, okay, they don't even align with who I am. I'm not going to even go there. I'm not going to go to that extent with this particular situation and or conversation. So it's important to be self-aware so that you know how to behave. Okay. Then the third one we're going to deal with, we're just breaking down what self-awareness is. Number three is understanding of how one's actions affect others and the environment. That's a whole piece by itself. So we definitely got to talk about that. Okay. So where I want to hang my hat for the next few minutes, and I do mean few, is on knowledge of one's character, feelings, motives, and desires. Okay. Um, and this is a fundamental layer of self awareness. It's about turning inward and honestly assessing who you are at your core. Who is that? Who's the person at your very core? So let's talk about character. Character that refers to your moral being, your moral compass, your ethical compass, your values, your quality. What defines you? Who are you? Are you defined by somebody else, or do you clearly know who you are? So that means, are you generally honest? Do you generally stretch the truth, and you really kind of hide behind things, and it's like, are you compassionate, or are you a little standoffish? Are you a resilient person, or you fold under pressure? Who are you? Because that's important. Your character, that's important. Understanding that helps you to make decisions that are consistent with your principles, because out of your character becomes principles. Like for me, I'm a very dedicated, loyal, committed person. I'm very big on character and integrity. That's important to me, right? And so if those things are off, I'm off because they don't work for me. it matters, right? So that is very, very key. Be very sure about that. And if you need to reevaluate that, reflect upon that, do that and write that down and determine, because sometimes we kind of take on things of other people because we've been in those environments for so long. And so we take things on that are truly not who we are. And so it's important to assess those things, right? Then we have feelings. And this is, I've been guilty of this, and I could be guilty of it because I can isolate very easily and be done. I don't have to deal with it. But that's not healthy. This involves recognizing the full spectrum of your emotions, whether that's joy, sadness, anger, fear, all of them and everything in between. It's just not about experiencing them, but it's also about being able to label them when you experience them and understand their intensity. And for me, one of the things that I dealt with very, very strongly was grief. And it was hard. And it was one of those times that it literally took me off. It just like swept me off my feet. It took the wind out of me, because I got to a place of experiencing grief on a level that I had not allowed myself to feel. Um, and as a result of that, it blew me away. And so I had to envelop it. I had to deal with it. I had to talk through it. Um, I had to have therapy. I had to do all the things because it had taken me to that extent of to the lowest level of my emotional barometer. I was there. And so I had to deal with the emotion and deal with the grief. And it had to I had to get it out some way or the other. So there had to be some journaling, all the things that I needed to do to cope with that, to deal with that, so that I could maintain who I was. Because what happens is these emotions can overtake you, overcome your your being, and so then you begin to act out of character, right? Because you're not aware, you're not self-aware of what those feelings are and how deep they are and how it is that they're affecting who you are and what you do every day. And so I was a walking functional depressed person, as well as grief stricken person, and those were not two things that should have been going together. And so it was like being a ticking time bomb, right? Literally. Um, because anything could have been said on one side or the other, and it could have just, and there were days that I would just break over the simplest things because all of that weighed so very heavy. So we have to be aware of our feelings. Okay. So that's super, super, super important. Then number three for this one is motives. This dives deep into the why behind our actions, why we do what we do, what drives us. Are you motivated by achievement, connection, security, or something else? It's just like with couples. What's the love language? And sometimes in scenarios, especially with couples, sometimes as women we do things because we want the attention of the other. Sometimes the men do things because they want the attention of the other. The motive is the attention. The motive is to be seen. The motive is to be heard. So sometimes we act out of character to be heard, to be seen, to be recognized, right? See me. You're looking at me, but do you see me? Those are two different things, right? You're listening to me, but do you hear me? So that kind of thing. So what are our motives for doing what we do and how we do them? Understanding our motives help us to align our behavior with our true goals. Because when we really clearly understand who we are, our character, and that kind of thing, our motives are going to be aligned with that. And so we're not going to do things that are outside of those parameters. This makes sense.